The moment you close civic space, the moment you shut down the mouth of citizens, what do you expect out of the election?
That is not a radical activist speaking. That's a former cabinet minister, a woman who helped draft Uganda's constitution.
And when such a citizen suggests that elections are meaningless, it should trigger a moment of contemplation. However, Uganda's electoral body is promising to deliver a free and fair election.
When have they ever been free and fair? You may, all of you, go and vote, and yet because the government wants to win, your voting may not appear.
And if such a trust deficit, the one we are seeing, already exists, are we looking at a low voter turnout as the main feature of this election?
And if so, which presidential candidate will actually benefit from a low voter turnout?
I want my vote to be counted, so I wish it will be counted, and I believe that it will be counted.
And that is what we are discussing today.
Hello and
Happy New Year.
My name is George Okachi.
My name is Mefo, Newuh. Welcome to Under the Bouba, where we make complex issues personal.
Yes, definitely. Every Friday we sit down with policy makers, politicians, and African leaders to break down the issues that matters the most to you. And we want you to subscribe and be part of the community on our YouTube channel and join the conversation.
Please subscribe. So, George, today we are talking about Uganda and the Pearl of Africa and the elections in Uganda, which is arguably the beating heart of functioning democratic countries.
Definitely, Mimi. And this is why today it is our honor to have Dr. Miria Koburunga Matembe. She is a strong advocate for women's rights, fearlessly outspoken, and was Uganda's first Minister of Ethics and Integrity from 1998 to 2003.
And I believe that we'll be having some ethics today. George is also from Uganda, so I'll have a lot to learn today. But it's a given, of course, that, here under the Bouba, we bring just the people that are best for each topics that we handle every week. A democratic election, as we always say, isn't just about the voting day,
Definitely.
It's always before, during, and also after.
Yes, and we're talking about credibility of that process, transparency of that process, and how you're letting in people participate, because without the people there is no election.
So in the situation of Uganda, we will be trying to find out a lot of things about that, but based on what international organizations like Amnesty International and as well as key opposition leaders are saying, we can't help but question, is there credibility? Is there going to be a free and fair election in Uganda? And are people really feeling safe in the country before the election? Which is something that we wanted to ask our guest today, Dr. Matembe, what she thinks about the overall conduct of the election that is yet to take place.
Here in Uganda, in theory, we have multi-party political system, but in practical terms, we don't have it. And I think we don't need to talk about it. I mean, it is clearly seen. You can see if the other parties, the only party which has free space to do what it wants in Uganda is the party in government. But right now, the opposition, which we would say, this time it can win, you can see the challenges it has faced. It is tear gas, it is harassment, there is no free space. So, for me, I would say this is sham elections as they were, as they have been since we went into multi-party political system. What I know we have is a military dictatorship, but which reflects itself, uses the people to become a democratic.
So when you call it sham election, are you saying that people should not believe in the election that is being organized in Uganda?
Well, if people want to believe in it, for me, you are asking me. I'm not them. The moment you close civic space, the moment you shut down the mouth of citizens, the moment the government, like the military, or rules over the Electoral Commission, what do you expect out of the election?
But the government says that they are providing a solution through deploying security personnel to protect the election results and maintain order at the polling stations. Do you trust this initiative?
Don't talk to me of initiatives which replace the power and authority of the citizens. Is the police is the very police which is torturing the opposition. Now, if you tell me that the police is providing alternative for what?
Opposition presidential candidate like Bobi Wine, for instance, has called on his supporters to turn out in large numbers, cast their ballots, and then stay at the polling stations until the results are declared. Do you think that the government is deploying security forces to curb mobilization and ensure calm and serenity?
I don't understand what you are talking about. Who is taking away the calm and serenity? Who is taking it away? Is it the citizens of Uganda? Or it is in fact the police which takes away people's serenity and calmness when they want to interfere with them? So that means they are expecting fight? What does that mean? When you tell me that they want to keep serenity, they want to do what? Let me tell you, madam, I was in politics of Uganda for 20 good years. And we used to go and hold elections. And we would campaign, you would be nominated, and you'd go and campaign freely, and election day, you would go and vote, and stay there, and they count, and you go home peaceful. Now, if they can close that and say, citizens, you have no right to see what is going on. You vote and go home. Now, what do you expect? You expect the counting or even the voting and the counting to be free and fair and transparent when the citizens are told to go away instead of playing their part? What is the part of a citizen in elections?
What is the part of the citizens in the elections? So, of course, Mimi, you should know that Dr. Matembe is referred to as the Iron Lady of Uganda, and it comes out strongly. But to substance, what he's insisting that if there is any pillars of what defines an election collapses, then it defeats the logic why people should even come out to participate.
Right. We've had, cases where election outcome is always very contentious. In some parts of Africa, we've had the same situation in Nigeria, where Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar came out to say, oh, they won the election, and even even went to court. We saw the same situation in Cameroon. It was contentious as well. Even though the main opposition leader, Issa Chiroma Bakari, did not take any court action because he didn't believe in the courts. But in Uganda, where we are today, in the previous election in 2021, Bobi Wine actually took court action.
And he claims to date that he's still the people's president, and his victory was stolen.
That his victory was stolen, even though he withdrew that case. So this is something that we get to see more and more, during and even after elections in some parts of Africa.
But of course, we can't stop to mention that there are countries like Ghana which had a very peaceful, process, and also
peaceful in court, because there are always also reservations after the election. Because the main issues about elections in some parts of Africa is not just about that voting process. It's what happens before, and also all these intimidations that we see, even opposition leaders complaining.
You mean prior the
international organizations coming in. Yeah. There are a lot of factors being put together that really jeopardize, the credibility, jeopardize, people really having that ability to come out and express themselves.
Yeah, and that is why, the legal system is now trusted in some societies to be the last redress for people who are, not happy with the results of election or how the entire electoral process has been conducted.
Yeah, because usually the institutions, like you hear from the opposition leaders, are mostly controlled by the government in place. So this election is going to be like a huge test for, a huge democratic test for Uganda, which is a question that I also put to our guest to find out from her what she thinks is Uganda actually losing its democracy within the context of this election, and what her expectations are. Let us hear what she has to say.
The legal means here in this country are always there. You go to court, but what will the court give you? Nothing, because is the court in charge of its power? For instance, I will give you an example. This Sarah Birete case, I'm sure you know about it. I was in court. They arrested her 4 days. She's in police illegally. And the day they brought her to police and we applied for bail, And the prosecution, by the way, did not object to bail, but I saw this magistrate saying, no, let this case come back on 21st January. The purpose is Sarah Berete should keep quiet, go to prison, and everybody who was trying to challenge things which are not right will shut down until after elections.
You mentioned that things started going wrong in Uganda after the 2021 presidential election. And after that last election that took place in the country, Bobi Wine's house was surrounded by security forces. Should we expect similar pressure on Ugandan opposition this 2026?
Me, I'm not a prophet, and I don't want to start expecting things. But what I know, I will not be surprised. You hear? I will not be surprised if anything can be done. I will not be surprised. Because I don't know, the biggest thing is that this government, which has been in power for almost 40 years, is so scared. I don't know why it is so scared of opposition. And one wonders why. If the government doesn't want opposition, then why does it say that we have a multi-party democratic dispensation?
So, yes, we should recall that Uganda is not actually under a military regime, as our guest would suggest. Uganda is still a democracy, right?
Yes, it's still categorized as a democratic society, yeah.
Yes, but, opposition leaders and even activists would always have their opinion about how the country looks like because they see the reality from the ground. But this election is very important,
yes.
For the people of Uganda because after ruling the country for more than 40 years, there's going to be a question of whether this will be a continuity for President Yoweri Museveni or, a halt of that, government that has been going on for so many years.
And we've seen a very spirited campaigning period for all the participating candidates. We should mention that there are about 8 candidates who've already offered themselves for the position of presidency.
Right.
But Robert Chagulanyi, also known as Bobi Wine, is considered as the formidable contender, the main challenger to President Museveni. And of course, many Ugandans who will be participating, they have about 21 million registered voters. Hoping that this is a reflection during the election date. They will be looking at, the policies that Bobi Wine is offering or other presidential candidates are offering, or sticking to President Yoweri Museveni, who is still, saying that he is happy to, finish his legacy and rule Uganda to the conclusion of his plans.
Yeah. Talking about, Bobi Wine, we had a discussion with him. For those who want to watch, please, you can still follow under DW Africa. But for the upcoming election, you mentioned a very important point about what the people will be doing now, what their thoughts are. That is a question that our correspondent Frank Yiga put to some Ugandans in Kampala, the capital city.
Yes, I'll be voting because I'm a confirmed registered voter, and I also know that it is my civic duty to vote.
I believe authorities will do what is possible to ensure that my vote is counted, because if it's not, then I'll count it as a loss. I want my vote to be counted. So I wish it will be counted, and I believe that it will be counted.
About feeling safe expressing my political views on the presidential elections this period, I would say yes and no. Yes, if I'm at my home. If I'm at my home, I can say whatever I want about these presidential elections. But out there, it's a bit tricky and very funny. You don't know who's coming for you after saying whatever you're saying.
Yeah, that is a general, gauge of mood of how Ugandans are preparing for this, civic exercise that is slated for January 15th. And of course, most of them expressing that they will be voting, they will, participate.
Yes.
But this notwithstanding, there are still issues, like participation, freedom of speech, having to say what you want to say and what you believe in without feeling, intimidated in any way.
Right.
And Mimi, Amnesty International this week said it had gathered evidence of security officers beating and using tear gas against supporters of National Unity Platform, and it's not them saying, actually. We reported about that. We saw that happening, and videos have been viral on how Bobi Wine has been denied opportunity to campaign.
You know, it's always the same kind of story with the opposition. And we always question, why is the NRM party members not suffering the same fate as opposition leaders? There's also been arrests. Key opposition leaders like Kiza BCJ has been arrested. We heard of Sarah Berite that has also been arrested and detained ahead of the January 15 presidential election, amidst fears also that there could be internet shutdown.
But Mimi, this is, as I've said, it is not, a unique scenario. It is something that happened in 2021, and people are actually preparing for eventuality of the same scenario to happen in this election.
And authorities also in Uganda have said that, we are not going to, curtail freedom. We are going to allow internet access for everyone. But also I wanted to find out from our guests, what does it mean like to be an activist in Uganda? What does it mean like to be an opposition?
It means that you must be ready to suffer. You must be ready to suffer. You must brace yourself because you are not needed. In this country, Uganda, it's very unfortunate that it is perceived that anybody who is not supporting government and who is not in the NRM government is not seen to be a Ugandan who loves the Ugandan. The moment you are in opposition, it means you don't love Uganda and you are not expected to be treated as a Ugandan. And therefore you are subjected to that kind of torture and suffering.
I just wanted to find out if President Yoweri Museveni of 1986, when he first took power, were to meet the Museveni of today, what do you think is going to happen?
The good thing is that the Museveni, you are asking a person who has usually used to have a conversation with Museveni before we parted. Because I was able to tell him, sir, when you came to take power, you were like this, the front of my thumb. But right now you are like this, behind the thumb. He was calling me to go back to him, and I said, which of you should I join? This one or the other one? And I said, when I joined you, you were taking this straight path. But now you have jumped off, go back into the bush, I don't know where you are going. So if me, myself, who is not that Museveni, can see things are like that, what about the other Museveni, the original one of 86? But maybe they knew one another. Maybe...
Yeah, maybe the Museveni of 1986 knew that the Museveni of today will be like this.
Judge, don't be like this. You have to be like this.
Yeah, definitely. But of course, we are human, and things do change with different circumstances as well. But Mini, more credibly, the question of credibility of this election. Mimi, you cannot take away the fact that if there is fear that the election will be meaningless, there will be a number of a huge demographic within the society who will shun from participating. And I'm talking about the young people.
The young
Uganda.
people. Yes. It's a double-edged sword because young people in Uganda, we heard them saying that they want change.
Yes.
But in the previous election in 2021, we saw over 18 million registered voters.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we had below 60%, voters rate. So about 8 million people didn't take part in the election.
Yes.
Which was really huge. If these 8 million people had voted, would have had probably a different outcome. So Judge, as a Ugandan, how do you feel about this whole issue of voter apathy in Uganda?
Mimi, I would tell you for a fact, and it's not unique to Uganda itself. There are a number of arguments that have been, floating around about how to rig elections. And you find that low voter turnout is always a very critical feature that must be studied because there are some parties that would encourage low voter turnout, knowing that if people don't turn out, it will be an argument why the opposition, say, or, the second contender would lose. Because you find out that majorly it's always that a huge number who could have voted, say, for the opposition or the second contender didn't turn out to vote, then maybe it makes a difference.
But that strategy is something that maybe some Ugandans would want to avoid this year because we heard from them. But what is our guest thinking? What is her take? Let us also hear what she thinks.
When the elections are already concluded and you know this is already done, you'd rather stay at home, because even if you go there, for me, I'm not telling them to stay at home. I'm telling them, please do what your heart is telling you. For us, changes are not made through our elections. You may, all of you, go and vote, and yet, because the government wants to win, your voting may not appear. I mean, for you, if this was a genuine multi-party political dispensation where there is a political environment that supports political parties and alternative view, that likes the citizens' participation in their governance, if that was the environment, then of course people would be running with excitement and joy to go and vote, because they know that because of the free and fair elections, their candidates will be winning. But now it is like concluded.
But are you going to vote yourself? Will you participate in the 2026 presidential election in Uganda?
I will do what my heart, my God will guide me to do. In my things, in whatever I do, I'm guided by God. Don't think I came here to talk to you. I first challenge, I said what. In the meantime, the Lord was guiding me. So I'm telling Ugandans, in the current political environment in which we are, and I'm saying, do what your heart is telling you to do.
Just guided by God.
Yes, and do what your heart is telling you to do. Yes.
That was a heated one. And when the conversation is heated like that, what do we do under the baobab?
Normally we retreat and, sit down under this shade and get to know our guests on the other side. So what is the most underrated Ugandan dish?
Underrated Ugandan food? You want people to hate me? These are tough questions, because we are different tribes. We eat different food. Each tribe chooses, has its best. Others eat birds. Others eat ensenene. Others, we don't want to see birds and ensenene. So when you ask me those questions, I don't want to be hated by Ugandans.
And trust the system or trust the people?
It is the people who make the system.
Change or continuity?
Transition.
Bobi Wine or Museveni?
My friend, whoever God brings.
And will you prefer to watch AFCON game or a debate with President Museveni?
Maybe I could watch a football match.
And how about one thing you've learned from your president?
What I would say is that he's a man who loves power like he loves power more than anything.
What is your activity when you want to wind down?
Oh, I go to my altar. I read the word of God. I sing and dance, and then I'm home and dry.
I like that when you asked Museveni or Bobi Wine, she said, whoever God
brings.
But she's so against Museveni. So is she also against Bobi Wine? Well,
yeah.
So President Yoweri Museveni was in his early 40s when he first came to power.
Yes.
In Uganda. That was January 1986.
Yes.
And today he is seeking a 7th term in office.
Yes. I mean, that was like some 3 months before I was born. So I was born, found Museveni in power, and he is also considered as a top contender in this election. So meaning,
and he's 81 now.
He's 81 right now. So it means that he may keep on ruling Uganda. Yes.
So another big issue I just wanted to ask you, George, what do you see? Do you see Uganda today without President Museveni as a leader?
Wow, that is a very interesting question, Mimi, if you asked me. And if anything, maybe people have grown through, the reign of President Museveni. They know no any other leader than Museveni.
Right.
And I remember there are some people who would make, fun, like, who is Museveni of Cameroon? Or who is Museveni of Ethiopia? They think Museveni is synonymous to the name of president. But under the baobab, we go beyond accountability and problems that are raised to look at the solutions. So what does Uganda need? What leadership can be put in that country to bring it back to track? And what is the way forward for the country after the election?
Great questions there, Judge. And this is beyond campaign promises or the all wealth that is promised. I mean, we saw when President Museveni was detailing what he will do when he's voted, he says there is peace already in Uganda. There's water, you know, there's access to health.
Yes.
But if I'm voted again, I'm going to give, free, he said, clean water.
Yes.
So he said some things and contradicted himself again. After 40 years, you've not been able to achieve most of these things.
Yes.
And you say you want to do them if you are given the opportunity. But let us hear what our guest has to say about these promises and what Uganda actually needs.
Oh my God. Let me tell you the challenge we got. Leadership, the word leadership means about others. We used to have a leadership that was people-driven and service-oriented. The current leadership which we have is not people-centered. It is self-centered and power-oriented.
So who, in your view, represents the most credible option to bring meaningful change in Uganda today?
People keep saying that is it between Museveni or Bobi Wine? It's not Museveni and Bobi Wine who are Ugandans or Honorable Kyagulanyi. It's not President Museveni and Honorable Kyagulanyi who are the only leaders in this country. But many of those who could be taking Uganda into a change, they don't want to suffer what is going on, so they are there not participating.
If you had the opportunity to advise President Museveni, what will your advice be?
My advice, I have always told him, he did what he did and he did a wonderful job. He did so well, I'm telling you. The first Museveni government picked Uganda out of a ditch and put it on the foundation, and Uganda started to flourish. But when our president loved power more than the vision that he had come with, then things went astray. I have always told him, please, President Museveni, I wish you could rest because you served. Now, instead of your legacy being good when you leave, it will end up badly. He can never lose. He's going to win and go back. But the advice I would want to give him is if he could allow what I call, we have been demanding for a dialogue. Even after elections, we could enter into a dialogue and discuss as to how the country is going to be governed. In which case, where even people who are in opposition and those who are in government, where they could come together and constitute a government of national unity. For me, that's what I see that can redeem Uganda and maybe take it in a better position. Because you cannot think that the only people who have wisdom, the only people who have intellect, the only people who love Uganda are the only ones who support NRM. You can't think like that. I wish President Museveni could organize a dialogue of Ugandans and involve senior citizens in this country who don't lack, who don't want to be bought, who can sit at a table and we say, how are we going to redeem our nation? Because for the last 20 years, the multi-party politics have not worked. Instead, they have led us back to the times of Obote and times of Amin, when people used to disappear. We have gone back to that kind of system.
Interesting thoughts there. But my take-home, Judge, is elections only matter when they reflect the will of the people. When you see that the person you voted for ends up ruling the country. That's what matters to me.
Yeah, definitely. And beyond Uganda, this conversation speaks to Africans everywhere and African nations everywhere. It raises urgent questions about power, accountability, voter trust, youth participation, and what happens when democratic institutions no longer protect the vote of the people.
That's very important because this is a conversation that we have every Friday of the week. And if you want to be part of this conversation, you can follow Under the Baobab on our YouTube channel, DW Africa. Also join us on
Spotify and Apple Podcasts as we continue slowly to slow down and
Right.
ask hard questions.
Right.
Yes.
And here we make complex issues very, very personal, George.
Yes, my name is George Okachi. Until next time.
And I am Mimi Mefo Newuh. Bye.